Let's talk about starting a photography business when you are broke, like flat broke, not bankruptcy broke, but like, making ends meet is difficult. And I got a lot of flack recently for something I said about this because I have all of this and I'm very grateful for this. I have, the big cameras, the studio, the big agents and all the rest of it. I'm very, very grateful. And quite humbled by it as well. But there was a period in my life when I literally didn't have a home. I didn't have a bank account or money. I literally had nothing. And I had to start from that. Now, I have certain privileges. One is my accent. I sound reasonably posh because I had elocution lessons when I was younger before I fucked it all up. Two is that I'm a white male, and I cannot tell you how many doors that opens up. It's embarrassing, but it is just a fact of life. I know I've gotten jobs over women because I'm male, and there was a perception that I'd be able to deal with the stress better or whatever it may be, which is completely untrue. I crumble under stress like there's no tomorrow, but that is also true. I also live in the UK. We have a great benefit system. When I was at a low point, they housed me. They gave me a benefit amount of money to help feed me until I got myself back on my feet again. I also have a degree and a master's, which is also a great privilege to be able to have had those. So yes, I did start from a literally ground zero of nothing. But I do acknowledge the privileges that I have in my life. And I think that's worth noting because some people are like, that's great. I am a woman who lives here in this particular country, and because of where I come from in this country, I'm looked down. There's so many things. I have friends in photography who are better than me, and I know full well, because of where they're from, because of how they speak, they do not get certain jobs, and it's shit. And I wish it wasn't the case, and I do feel slightly guilty for having what I have, but that is where we are. And what I want to try and do, though, is help you start a business as a broke photographer. Now, the first thing is, you do not need all this kit. When I started out, I had a Canon 50D. No, I didn't. I had a Canon 450D and a nifty 50, which isn't really a 50 on one of those cameras. It's like an 85. It's a bit useless. The 450D wasn't mine. I borrowed it from my uncle's. And the 50mm lens, I think Hits gave it to me. Someone gave it to me. I didn't pay for it. Either way, that is what I started with. And I worked from my bedroom. I didn't have all of this stuff here. I lived in a council house and I worked from the bed. Well, actually, I lived in a council flat above a shop, which is a funny story, but they were not selling things they should have been down there. And I worked from there. And that's where I started. And I did, sort of like very small jobs now and again. And then, over time, I managed to get myself to a place where I could get a real job. I say real job, like a low-paying job, but an employment job rather than benefits. And what I did for those first 5 years whilst I was getting up on my feet again, I did photography gigs with the kit I'd begged, stealed and borrowed, or often I'd go and work for Hits, or I'd go and work for some other people and they'd give me a camera on the day to shoot with. So rather than being the photographer myself with my own camera, they would give me a camera. I went and did that stuff. I lived off my salary, and any money I made in photography, I put into a bank account. And I popped it in there, and I kept putting it in there until I could buy my own camera and return the borrowed kit. Eventually, I bought a Canon 50D, which was I think it cost me like £800, which was more money than I'd spent on anything at this point. And I bought a Sigma 18 to 55 2.8, and that got me through my first 2 years of making real money. And everyone else was shooting at the time on 5D Mark II's 2470 2.8L lenses, and I was shooting on this, but it didn't matter because my images were better. And this is not, well, it is me being slightly arrogant, but I'm trying not to be arrogant, but subjective, they weren't good images, but they were better than a lot of other people's at that time, charging the same price, which helped me along a lot. So I carried on doing this over the years. I got better and better jobs during my day job, which meant I really didn't have to worry about the photography. But I worked every single hour outside of my day job on photography. I took every day's leave from my day job to work on photography or to do photography jobs. I'd book it off as holiday, and I didn't go on holiday for a good 6 years. Detrimental to relationships and all the rest of it, absolutely. But it allowed me to keep bringing this money in until eventually I bought a 5D Mark II. And at this point, they cost £1,000. And that was more expensive than my 50D, so I had my 5D Mark II and my 50D as a backup camera. And then, before you know it, I was buying the 17 to 40L, which is this one here. I got the 24 to 70 and the 70 to 200. Because the thing with this is, you see all of the stuff behind me here and you go, that is a lot of money's worth of kit. And when you buy your first camera, that's a huge expense. Trying to get that £600 or £700 to buy your first second-hand camera, that is a lot. But as the money starts to snowball, it gets easier and easier. So all of a sudden, I bought two 5D Mark IIs on the same day for £1,000 each. And it didn't feel like a big stretch of finances, because by this point, things had slowly started to snowball in the background and the cash was coming in. I was doing weddings at the time, so I was doing second shooter weddings for cash on the day. Say cash on the day, not like money cash, or like, paid on the day. I was taking bookings for the following year for my own weddings, and I was doing weddings at the same time. They were paying balances, and it was all snowballing along. And then eventually I started to move into a more commercial world. I thought, weddings aren't for me. I can't cope with the stress. Let's look into this commercial world. And once I got there, the money was obviously better. You sort of start off at £1,200 a day plus usage. And that was a good point for me to be at. That was a good place for me to be at. And the money suddenly started to really snowballing. You should get a 10-day job at £1,200 a day plus usage. And that's suddenly a lot of money. But it sounds like this was an overnight thing. It wasn't. It was 10 years graft to get to this point. And I think that's what a lot of people forget. It takes a long time, and it really does. And the amount of times I've been struggling for rent or going, I've really messed this up. I can't do this any longer. I've made a mistake. This doesn't work. I cannot tell you how many sleepless nights there were. Now, at the point I started getting the commercial work, I left my day job because no one's taking a commercial photographer seriously who's also got a day job. So I left my day job and I got a studio. I paid my first month's rent, and then I just prayed to God I could make it work because I didn't have any money for month number 2. And over the years, I slowly built up a buffer of savings, so I don't have to worry about these things anymore. But there were a lot of sleepless nights early doors. There were a few times where I had to sell kit to make rent, and that's just the way it is. And if you are broke, like I was broke, you're probably able to go, yeah, that's a nightmare. That's exactly what I'm having to do. And it is. You just got to push through it. Be really frugal. My first studio ran off speed lights, Yong and Yuo and Godox before they were good. It ran off speed lights, and because I got free electricity, I had a wall of AA chargers down the side, and we just charged those batteries all day, and then we just hammered the flash guns till they melted. And that's what I did. I didn't buy studio heads because I couldn't afford them, and that was fine, because my images still look good. We just found a workaround. We bumped the ISO up to 400. No one cares. And it's about finding these workarounds. You do not need the latest and greatest kit, even today. The camera I use is 7 years old. I've got 3 of these, the 7-year-old cameras. I've not gone mirrorless. Why would I spend my money on that? That's not going to make me any better as a photographer. It's not going to make my ideas any better or my concepts any better. This does the job absolutely fine. So it's very easy to get sucked into this. I need more, I need better, I need this, I need that, and all the rest of it. My advice would be to go, I've got this. This is what I have. What can I do with it? What can I sell with this? I've got a camera, I've got a 50mm lens, and I've got a speed light. What can I do to make money? What can I do to sell my service? And we'll keep doing this until we get more money coming in. And then we'll look at it and go, right, what would improve this service, or what would allow me to branch out of this service? Let's buy that bit of kit and then continually move along. If you get a big job land on you, and I had a few of these, you rent the kit for the day. Yes, you make less money in the profit margin, but it's better than having thousands of pounds of kit sat around gathering dust and depreciating. So my general point of this is, if you're skinned and you're looking, I used to look at famous BTS magazine on Instagram when it was still running, and you look at these shots and they've got like 20 Scoro Broncolor packs and they cost 14 grand each. And they've got like 40 Broncolor heads and they're like 2 grand each to plug into them. And they've got a phase 1 and all the lenses. That's like another 70 grand. I remember looking at it going, who the hell are these rich people who can afford this stuff? Who on earth? And mostly it's rented, because who would want that much money of kit lying around? But also it's a snowball effect. When you're doing your first jobs at 50 quid for your mate, it's impossible to afford those things. But those £50 jobs, they lead to £200 jobs. And then you start to be able to go, I can afford a full frame camera. And those £200 jobs move to £500 a day jobs. And then you start going, yeah, I can get some nice lenses in here. And, start to maybe think about going part-time in my day job. And then those ones, they lead to £1,000 jobs. And then it's when you get to the £1,000 jobs and they suddenly jump up to like 10 grand a day plus. That's when you suddenly go, oh yes, I can buy this kit. But actually, now that I can, I won't, because I'll just rent it, because that's a more financially savvy way to do things. You'd be an idiot to buy this stuff, because all it's going to do is lose value. This camera here was 3.5 grand brand new, which I didn't pay for it. It's worth £1,200 now, which I did pay for it. I always buy my kit secondhand because it will depreciate. Anything electronic will lose value. So buying it used, really good way. I use MPB in the UK. I'm not sponsored by them at all. I have done some jobs where they've sponsored the event, but we don't have a relationship. I don't know anyone there. But like buying used from them, great. Now when it comes to computers, I buy either refurb models or secondhand, because I'm not paying the devaluation. It's all about being savvy with the money. It's great if you've got loads of cash because you've had a sensible life, unlike me who partied till he literally died. It is easy to go, yeah, I'll go and invest in all this kit. But I think there's a benefit to being a broke photographer and being resourceful and understanding how to save money and how to make greater profit margins. And I think that's a real asset to you. So if you sat there at home going, I want to be a professional photographer, but I just cannot afford it, don't worry, stick with it. It does snowball. It does change. There will be some hard years ahead, but it is okay by the end. Anyway, I hope this has been of use to somebody out there, because when I was in that position, I felt very lonely. I felt very like the world was against me almost. I definitely had a bit of a blame complex going on to like, it's just not fair. But eventually I, struggled through it, obviously. So hopefully this is helping you, and hopefully you can get to a place where you can make peace with the fact you're going to get in there, take time, and then eventually get to the point where you can become a professional photographer despite having nothing to start with. See you all soon. Bye-bye.